that's funny because 9:30 on Saturday morning.
Okay, 9 AM, July 25th, 2023, Finance IT Committee. Amanda, could you call the roll, please?
Alf.
Here.
Bowers.
Yes.
Geiger.
Here.
McGinnis.
Here.
McTaggart.
Here. Lyle had called me and he had something with his father medical wise that he needed to attend to, so he's not gonna be here. I guess I'll call the meeting to order. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Make it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Public comments? And we'll move on to the budget stuff. So that's stuff about Lyle. I think I'll just say, well, first, thanks to Jill and Amanda for getting all this stuff together. Lay of land, because some of you haven't been on the finance committee. Obviously, the schedule's on the first page, and this year, Jill, I think nicely put all the page numbers over on the right-hand side, so you know where we're going and labeled each page, so that's helpful. The second page is kind of the overall summary of the general fund. So that's the number we're looking at, I will say. And there's a long way to go here, but we're starting off in a positive 424,000 or whatever, which is never happened in, I think, the 6 years I've been here. So that's good news. Their probation is missing out of there. You'll see that big line item missing. That 440,000 is offset though by about $400,000 worth of revenue. So that's not a full expense. I mean, both those numbers are missing. So it's probably a net $50,000 increase. No, it'd be a negative number. So it would pull that number down. We don't have as much in AFSCME negotiations. That number's probably a little bit low. You're at 4% increases and not sure that
Most of them, I included on page 5, and I do apologize, I'm putting these off, some of them might be that one, but. On page 5, I did include this year, maybe it would help if you won't, but there's the employees that are listed there, their departments on the first column, their name, what they're currently making, what is requested. Now, these are requested amounts that from the worksheets that I got back from the department heads, and then I gave you the percentage on the side. So they range from anywhere from 4% to 10% being requested. So I don't know if that'll help or not, but I added that in this year.
Okay, very good. And then the page basically after that, number 7, is the revenue line items. Doug had some questions about those things. She put over to the right-hand side who's responsible for providing all those different numbers. So if you have questions about those we need to ask them when they come in. Most of those, other than the sheriff, will be here today, so we need to go over each of those and the logic and if there's any opportunities or upside, downside.
Typically on Wednesdays are days that you'll see everybody from the courthouse, because that's one of their slower days rather than Tuesday, so.
Okay, that's the basic lay of the land. Other than that, then we'll move on to Ms. Feller here and the zoning budget, which should be
Page 17.
17. Okay, go ahead, Julie.
I'm sorry, this is my first go around here,
Don't
so
worry.
I'm not sure what you guys need from me
So-
outside of what's on.
Basically, Julie, what you're gonna do is you're gonna start at the top of your budget and you're gonna explain like your increase that you're requesting and if there's any differences in your line items from FY 23 to FY 24.
Okay,
And, if you could provide a reason as to why those are different, that would be great.
okay.
Okay.
Increase in salary to 47 is only like 4.4%, for total. I didn't think that was, it's just a cost of living raise basically. 2,000 for zoning board, that's the same as budgeted for 23. The inspections, I bumped that up a little, due to solar. And that we're going to be getting more and more with that going on. I just mailed out 2 ground mount for private yesterday, so.
Question on that is do we have anybody
currently employed that is capable of doing the wind and solar inspections.
I don't think so.
So I'm just asking, how do you think that you're just gonna get by with just a little increase if we don't have a person who's technically capable of doing it?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. There's a lot of unknown yet in regard to wind and solar.
Part of it will be though, they'll be reimbursing us for those inspections. But
Mhm.
just so it doesn't skew our budget, or that we're aware that those inspections might jump.
Publications are the same at 1,000, mileage and travel the same at 10,000.
That's another one I had a question with. This year already, you've gone through $13,000 worth, correct? Of mileage?
Actual, is 6983 gone through.
Right, but I mean, if we extrapolate that to.
Yeah, to the
it's-
forecast,
It's
yeah.
gonna be 14,000, so what makes you believe that we can get by with less inspection mileage?
Probably should be increased. But
Inspection mileage is up, permit use should be up too. Those kind of go hand in
Yeah, but we can talk about it.
hand. I know.
Board of Appeals left at 1,000. I mean, we're low this year, but, we could have additional Board of Appeals meetings next year.
We started with their digitalization sometime, there might be more appeals than two, so.
Right.
But I doubt that happens next year.
Education and dues, 500. I already have a class, in regard to becoming, certification for zoning administrator already, so then that ends in February. And then so the total is 83.3, which is up, I think, 4.7 from 23.
Okay. So then we probably need to switch, modify the mileage and travel is what we're thinking.
Yeah. That mileage
You wanna go
per diem.
To 15.
That's what it's gonna be.
It'd be interesting to know how that mileage is calculated though too, because I still suspicion that each trip is from home to the point and back again, and then the next trip is from home to the point and then back again, and I don't know if it really does it that way. Most of us would go from point A to point B to point C and then back home again in the day's time.
If they have more than one scheduled for that day, yes, but unfortunately, that doesn't always happen.
Right, okay. Well,
Yeah. Our permit counts were up. Okay, but it should be on those days.
Do they have to inspect all the wind generators and wind towers that are out there now? The ones like in Sheldon?
I haven't had anything to do with the wind towers out there.
Okay, are these for the
Yeah.
individual?
New
Yeah, these are new inspections.
Okay.
homes and buildings and.
Yes. Plumbing, electrical,
Same thing with solar, it's a new one, right?
right.
Is there any
Solar
ones set
will be reimbursed.
installed?
I don't have anything set for new wind, no.
No one's made an application at this point?
No. And, the company that came and did the presentation for the solar, I had tentatively scheduled them for ZBA for the, end of August, and I got an email from them saying that they needed to push it back, that they weren't ready, which was fine by me.
Our solar infrastructure is just not there for the big stuff, resi's.
Okay, and then Back on the right.
Generators or solar panels.
So we don't charge them.
They're solar
15.
panels and they have inverters on them as well because they have to change from DC to AC power.
I've done that $6,000 from the previous years. But I will change it for next year to be close. On the
Revenue on page 7, there's building and zoning fees.
or previously done by.
Last year it was 35,000.
I think we're already at 43 for the year, something like that.
In the budget, she has it at 41, but, which. I don't know.
You're already at.
We're obviously on a much higher rate this year, but we're already on pace to be an all-time record. But yeah.
At this time, do we wanna consider splitting out any of these solar and wind? Either revenue and expense streams, so we can more accurately and make it helpful and easy to Julie to. Cause I don't think we're gonna have the equipped with
I
personnel.
already have a wind and solar, revenue line.
Good.
We can use it, if we're getting enough of that, then we can split it, that's fine. And I can get that to you.
Cause we're gonna have ongoing costs then as we do in these yearly inspections and who knows what it's
Well,
gonna.
so far I've just had personal
Yeah,
use.
yeah.
And that's not good.
You're raising your.
5,000. I don't know.
You said you had how many this year so far? Oh,
I just
building,
don't like to overshoot
revenue.
revenues.
43.
so far.
I mean, you could raise it if you wanted to, 45.
Wonder what's going on, why it's bumped to 40
I think material costs have come down a little bit and so people are doing their additions and things like that.
Lumber's come down. It's down a lot. 2 by 4s to 50.
All I'm saying is she's already at 40 something.
Well, that doesn't,
Yeah, it's such a huge.
I mean, and people are,
floating
you know,
number
they're
from
not
year to
gonna,
year.
I think probably past September, it's gonna be significantly dropped off, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, that's it. I mean, comfortably, you could maybe go to 45.
well, I had 4,000 there.
Where'd you get that on revenues? I couldn't hear you.
Yes, it's on revenues and it's the building and zoning fees, about halfway down.
I'm good.
Okay, and then I'll get you the general ledger number for wind and solar if you want to separate those out,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
And then when you turn in your receipts to Callie, you'll just use that wind and solar for whatever wind and solar fees you have.
Okay.
Are we gonna do any software or anything for trying to manage this, these solar costs and revenues that we need to be reimbursed for, or any thoughts there?
I'm already doing electronic, as far as permits. I've significantly reduced the amount of paper that we're using up there for zoning processes, but,
I wonder if some of these other counties could help us out on what they use, because there's gonna be a boatload of expenses on inspections. I mean, if somebody's gonna have to go out and inspect the foundations, in theory, somebody's gonna have to be.
well, I already have a spreadsheet that I maintain for where we are on inspections. So realistically, in my mind, I thought I'd just be adding it to it and tracking it along as I do. And I send that spreadsheet out weekly to all of my inspectors. And I have since gathered some email addresses for assessors as well. So I'm sending the spreadsheet out and the permits and all of that to the assessors electronically. So, you know, I'm trying to reduce fees for postage there as well, so. I'm doing what I can to save some money.
We need it.
Okay.
Is there any revenues that you think the fees could be adjusted?
Oh yeah, I'm already on the agenda for the next tax and zoning committee for, regarding, fees for, fining people. For those that decide to build without a permit.
That's great, that's what we want to hear, those options.
I'm thinking.
Great, good.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Hello.
Good morning, good morning.
It starts on our page 18.
I'm gonna start with my area of budget or some revenues, cause you're gonna be really mad at my revenues.
Well, we can do the rest.
Let's look at the revenues first.
Yeah, page
And the reason why I'm saying you're gonna be really mad, I'm gonna go straight to it. The county recorder real estate transfer tax, it is, the line 45400.
It's on page 8.
I hit the plus sign. It's supposed to be 75,000, not 150. So, that line was obviously doubled by accident. So anyway, then looking at the only other big change I had in the revenues, was the election judge salary reimbursement. And I added, a $20 reimbursement for all election judges that the state has approved. They would be paying election judges directly the $20 salary. So if the county increases election judge salary $20 starting for the primary, then we can start receiving that salary reimbursement. So I did increase that line, and I'm sorry, my page didn't print what I increased it to. I think I increased it $3,900 for each election, if I am not mistaken. So we have 2 elections this year, so that's why we have to have the increase in a lot of things. Going down to county clerk. Let's see, county recorder fees and county clerk fees, I left those about the same. I did increase the recorder fees, I think. See, I don't have this line in front of me. What does the recorder fee say on your 24?
Recorder fees for 24 is 85, you increased it 10,000.
Right, yes. And then clerk fees I left at 65, right?
Clerk fees you left at 65.
Yes. So I think that's about where we're gonna be on those.
And your election judge reimbursement is still 19,500.
That's what it went up to,
Okay.
yeah. Mhm. Right.
Just wanted to double check.
Okay. Anyone have any questions about those lines?
Nope, okay. So
Okay.
then I think we're on page 18.
All right, so are we looking at general fund county clerk with department head, chief deputies, deputy clerk, that? Okay, so office expense decreased about $1,900. This is because I have purchased the big file cabinets that we needed and things like that, so we're able to take those down a little bit. Everything else is staying about the same. The education and dues expense is going down $50 due to dues changing, which everything goes up, so I'm surprised they went down. In the elections budget, election judge salaries, again, the 2 elections, and I did increase that, the $20 reimbursement. I didn't increase it for 185 judges, which by law, we're supposed to have 185 judges working. I only increased it the amount that we have been using, which is about 150. So, that is the reason for that increase. The ballots and supplies increase is due to the licensing fee and the new agreement for the new election devices, which the anticipated increase was going to be about $40,000.
but it's 34 is what the total came to, so it was a little bit less than what initially was going to happen. And then the training also, it increased from last year or this year because of the 2 elections, because we have to have training before both elections. Otherwise, everything else is the same, other 2 maintenance contracts. I did not touch any of the employee salaries, just because there's a negotiations meeting later today, so I figured we'll get a better handle on, hopefully we come to an agreement today, right?
You're
As far as automation goes,
page 62 that you're.
oh, I'm sorry.
You're fine, I just numbered their pages.
Okay. So as far as automation goes, for county clerk automation, I'm anticipating clerk fees to remain about the same. So imagining the revenues around $3,000. As far as for automation expenses, I do have $3,000 in there. May not spend it, but I do believe we are getting to a point, Jill, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Computers are gonna have to start being
I
replaced.
asked Bernie to bring a list of, or to email me a list of what computers are
Okay.
up this year.
Okay, so whenever computers in my office have to be replaced, I pay for them out of the automation. So I have that in there in case we do have to replace computers,
3 to 5 years
printers,
is what we're gonna
scanners.
replace them.
Right, and it's been, I think we're at close to 5 right now,
Probably.
like, I mean, it's real close,
Yeah, I asked him for an updated list, because I have a couple offices that are coming up that need to be redone.
About how many computers you have in your department?
Oh, we have a lot.
Guess.
In recorder office, we have 4, 5. In elections, we have 4. In vitals, we have 3, and then mine,
Was there a
so
plan
however
to
many that is.
replace whatever it is, 3 or 4 every year, and just go?
Each department generally has an idea of what their computers, when their replacements are, and yes, they should be on a rotating basis. Like, to give you an example, we have 3 desktops, 3 laptops in my office, and usually 2 a year come due.
If you give your computers to somebody else, does that count as a new one for them?
No.
And when we say computers, it's basically the tower. We just
Right.
replace the tower. We don't
Right.
buy it.
And then, my election computers, we have an IVRS grant, which we'll talk about in just a minute. That those can be replaced with the IVRS grant, but these would be vital computers, is what the automation expense would be used for if we do in fact need them this year. We do have a recorder, this kind of needs to be cleaned up, I think I've said this before, where we have something called a recorder death certificate surcharge, which it's not a recorder, it's a county clerk death certificate surcharge. So we get money from every death certificate that's filed in the county, and then it works as a grant from the state. So we pay them every month, and then they pay us back a portion, but they also pay the coroner a portion. So the death certificate surcharge grant runs about $1,200 every year. This year, I think we got 14. Yes, if you look in the revenue line, we did receive 1407 this year. So it's all based on how many death certificates we sign and sell. So anyway, that I just left at 1,200 because it's, again, a shot in the dark on what we're gonna do. But I spend that every year, and that can also be used for the vitals computer, as far as death certificate computer, or death certificate paper as well, which is quite an expense. In automation county recorder, I've got the recorder fees at about 4,800, which was the same as, or 48,000, I'm sorry, which is the same as what it was last year. all based on how many recordings we get in. Then again, with GIS, it's about the same as well. Automation expenses, I have cut down to 50,000. I don't think, that I have any big microfilm projects that are on the horizon. They're running about 75,000 a year as far as, so right now we're trying to wrap up the big microfilm project that you guys had approved through ARPA. So I'm waiting until we get that wrapped up before we start doing anything else. So I'm not anticipating starting anything next year, but the possibility is always there that we could potentially. Also in automation, I do pay for our recording program, the Bastion server. We have a virtual server and they store all of our documents away from here. So if something happens in Iroquois County, we'll be able to retrieve our documents. So anyway, that is paid out of the automation expenses as well, so that's not going to affect the general fund. I did not put a transfer to the general fund down. We're gonna leave that on as needed, if needed, that sort of thing, like we have for the last several years. And then you guys can just tell me what you need and I'll be glad to give it to you. So then, election grants. There's several listed in here. The only current election grant is an IVRS grant. We did receive word that we were awarded $29,856. So that will be used to pay for our voter registration system and then any computers that need to be replaced and anything that is allowable by the grant. Sometimes, like this year, we use the IVRS grant for our voter registration system and for our purge of election of voters. So for this year coming up, 24, we won't be doing a purge, but we will have that expense of the voter registration system, which is a pretty big chunk of that, about 17,000. Otherwise, I think that's it. Any questions for me?
Do you have any thoughts of across the board, where we might be able to increase revenues? That, I think we talked once.
Right, so my recording fees can be increased. It's just the GIS portion of my recording fees that we collect that can be increased. I believe it was $5 a recording document that we would be able to increase it. So that $5 would go directly to the GIS fund. And then it can be used for what GIS is used for. So,
We could raise that another,
it could be raised $5 without doing a fee study, without doing another fee study. And that's the only place that can be raised. Otherwise, like county clerk revenue line, we're maxed out unless we have another fee study, which those are, I think the last one we had was about $6,500 for just my office. And I mean, we have recouped that money back. It's been since 2019 that we had that, but, and we didn't increase the recording fees at that time, but the $5 in GIS was the only thing that they determined we could raise.
in your opinion, how are we compared to other surrounding counties on our recorder fees? Any idea?
I think we're close, give or take $5.
Well, I know it isn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all pretty similar. There are like, plat fees that are quite different in other counties, but they record a lot more plats than we do in subdivisions and things like that. So, and I'm just thinking like Kankakee, theirs is quite a bit more than ours. So that could increase, and again, I have said that I am willing to increase that recording fee. The only thing is I don't wanna do anything until I know what happens in legislation, because we have a dollar rental housing support that we could be also able to charge or required to charge, and I won't know that until after December. So I don't wanna move on changing my recording fees because of the time and everything that has to happen, the notifications and things like that. I'd rather wait until I know for sure that that's gonna change. But again, I would be willing to raise that if they do something with that, dollar rental housing support.
Thank you.
Okay, we good?
Other than $75,000, looks.
I know, dang it! I was,
And I didn't even question it because a couple of years back, it was like 115 is where it ended up.
I know, and yeah, and
She
I
knows
was
what
like,
she's doing.
I looked at it yesterday and I'm like, they are gonna kill me.
That's all right.
It's a,
But I didn't wanna call Jill yesterday, because she'd be like, I already printed these things.
I'm in the treasurer's office today, sorry.
Thank you, guys.
No worries.
okay, Eric?
Oh, wait.
No?
Assessment.
Oh.
Okay, so I get to be Bob
Sorry.
today.
I came to spy for a little bit, so.
He's later,
Back
Donna.
off.
He's later. Alright, so for assessment, I did the best I could, folks, so. With the property taxes, I left it the same. At the 1.9, this is page 7. At the 1.9, talked to Kurt a little bit, kind of figured leaving it the same would be the best bet for now. And then moving down, the salary reimbursement, I did put in the 27.5. The problem with this is Mia will have to pass her essay test in order for us to be able to get that reimbursement. So that's kind of a up in the air, you know, once she passes it, then that'll get sent in and then we'll get our reimbursements back. But for now, I left it at the 27.5 based off of her salary, or her current proposed salary. Let's see here, anything else on assessment in there? Nothing else on the revenue side for assessment there. Okay, so then page, yeah,
Didn't she take the test the other day there or something?
Yeah, she didn't.
Okay.
She's scheduled to take the test again on the bank.
Now on page 20 is the actual general fund assessment line. Again, I don't know all the details of Mia's hiring, but for now I put in the 55,000. I know that there's something if she
When she
passes.
passes the test, that number will increase.
Okay,
Might wanna put the increase in there.
I'm not sure what it is.
It could be as much as $5,000. It'd be up to the county board to decide. I think we talked about the minimum of 2,500.
Okay, so I'll put in the maximum for now. So that'll be a working number until October when we finalize these. Salaries, again, I left sorry, I did a lot of budgets this year. Yeah, we left that at 4%, we do have an open position in that office, we do have somebody out on maternity leave. So those will have to change according to what we find out today, that they're going to propose for salary increases. Office expense, office expense, I put in 65. I know there was talk about buying some software, which could generally come out of their, GIS fund or a different fund. So I'm thinking maybe that'll decrease their office expense a little bit if they go more software based versus hand and pencil and paper. Tax map services, I just went off of a 5-year trend at 22, which is high. They're trending 14.8 right now. But again, like I said, I went off of a trend because I don't normally do these. Publications, again, they're only at 2,000 for this year, but going off of a trend is 7,000. Same thing for mileage and travel. They're higher, it's looking like it's higher this year. The forecast is at 2,900, but based off of a trend, it's actually really low. They never even use the $1,000 that they do use, so I'm not sure why that mileage and travel is so high this year. But I took it and put it at 500, we can always adjust that if we need to. Education and dues expense, again, I went off of a trend. That one is forecasted at 1,090, and normally it's at 3,500. So I went ahead and left that at 1,500 with, again, based off of the trend. We can change it if you'd like.
Here,
Mia?
Yeah.
No, she doesn't start until
August first.
August 1st, yeah. So.
Well, one more question, if we go with this proposed Hammond system and we incorporate that sometime in the next year, there will be some yearly expenses to that. And would that fall under some of these buckets?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it would. The problem is I'm not the assessor and I wasn't involved with that. So I don't know what the costs are gonna be, the proposed costs are gonna be.
I'm sorry I didn't bring that folder.
No,
I
and
was
that's fine. If
thinking
you
of-
guys, if you have numbers that there may be like potential annual, maintenance fees or any of that kind of thing, just shoot me an email with it and I can adjust those numbers.
I was guessing around $5,000, just so the committee knew that we're proposing maybe that ARPA could help us get by this year or something too. But we just have to think about, moving forward. I'll get you that, and then you can decide how to break that down.
Yep. Put me a note on there for you. Alright, and then 21 is the board of review. This one never changes from year to year. Generally they put in $10,998 for salaries. $500 for office expenses and mileage and travel. Typically in the past, it's been budgeted at $1,000, it's only forecasted at $455, so I lowered it based off of a trend and based off of the forecast for this year. Again, we can always adjust those numbers if and when, after Mia starts, maybe she gets a little bit of a handle. We have time before October, we can adjust those numbers, so. Alright, and then page 68 is the GIS fund. So the investments, going off of a trend, special funds fees, again, I kept them the same as budgeted for FY23. There hasn't been a highway transfer since the GIS fund was first initiated. I don't know if that's, I think that had to do with something with the mapping services way back when, but, I left that at 0. Deputy clerk expense, they do have one clerk that gets paid out of the GIS fund, that's her salary there with a 4% increase. And then the GIS expense, typically left that at 15,000, like it's normally been, budgeted for. Now, in the past, historically, Bob has always said that this fund, he is allowing to grow because he'd like to use it for flyover costs. So, I'm assuming, again, may change once Mia gets acclimated, but I'm assuming that flyover is not gonna happen next year, so I left those expenses at 15.
He was saving.
Yeah, GIS is currently sitting at 177,000, so.
Yeah.
And they need more than that to do a flyover. But that's all I have for assessment. So, and again, those will have to be
big one,
adjusted.
we need to get, if you can, we'll
Yep, I
pencil
got
in
it.
$5,000 or whatever for that, but and then the salary increase, we need to do those, but I think it's good probably to leave it conservative on the property tax thing, but that's probably, I'm guessing, too small, but.
I'm assuming, but like I said, once Mia gets acclimated a little bit, maybe she'll have some
I mean, they
input
should have
come
the actual,
September, October before we gotta post it.
I mean, they should have the actual for, where are we at, I guess, like, well, I guess that would be for next year.
I don't know, it's not been easy. Alright, so page 12. Aaron. Say something. Okay, well. You wanna wait on Eric and I'll start on mine?
Oh,
Eric,
Eric
say-
Stacy.
He did, now Eric Stacy did do the EMA budget this year. Since he's still labeled as the EMA director for now. So I don't know if I want me to go over it or if you wanna wait for Eric and go over finance first, it doesn't matter to me. His is pretty easy to go over, so.
Send them a text if the next one.
Okay.
Swap, yeah.
Sounds good to me. Alright, so finance, I'll try to make it short and sweet. Revenues. Most of the revenues in here that I do are not labeled. Sale of property, we always leave it 0. Refunds and reimbursements, I'm just going down the line and I'm talking on the ones that don't have a description.
There it is.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. I'll finish.
All right, we're ready for you. So 21, or page 12, sorry.
What's six then?
Okay, EMEA, page 12. Morning, folks.
Morning.
Okay. Okay, so one of the big things that's going to be different about next year for EMA as opposed to this year is that there will be a new person. The new EMA coordinator will start on the 1st of August, and just like I was, he will be split between EMA and the health department. However, I was always 50-50. Mr. Anderson would be 3 days a week EMA, 2 days a week public health. So an additional half day a week towards EMA, as opposed to 2.5 days like I was. So, there will be some salary implications for them. Mr. Anderson is gonna start off at $46,500 annual salary. And EMA will need to pay 3/5 of that, and public health will need to pay 2/5 of that. Also, in the offer letter from Mr. Anderson is that he'll be in 1 year probationary status with the opportunity to get a merit raise after 1 year. The opportunity, not a promise. So, while 3/5 of 46.5 is actually 27,900, you notice in the department head salary, I put 30,000 because you'll need the flexibility to be able to give Mr. Anderson a merit raise come the 1st of August of 2024 if the chairman decides to. I'm not quite sure how they'll work, that's not really my purview. So, that's why department head salary is up from what I was making, which was 22,600 some change, to 30,000. Another thing that I increased is gas and oil. I increased it by $500. Typically, in the previous years, you notice I've not been using all my gas and oil. If I can manage not to use it, good. If I can budget it, great, because sometimes you never know what may happen. Gas is expensive, you need to be able to go. However, a new coordinator is going to need to go to a lot of different trainings throughout the state of Illinois. After he takes his new coordinator workshop, IEMA offers free courses, and it just depends on who can host them. Sometimes other EMAs host them. Over the years, I've hosted 2 or 3, but typically they're hosted at larger facilities, larger emergency operations centers. Some of them will be in, a lot of them will hopefully be in Urbana, but I've attended when I was going through that process of taking all these trainings. Some of them were in Roanoke, some of them were in Effingham. So I do recommend another $500 put towards gasoline so that he can go to the trainings that he'll need to go to. Maintenance of autos, I put up $500. The Suburban's running well. It is an old vehicle. Y'all increased it for the current fiscal year because there was a known issue that wasn't, it was the air conditioning. And I didn't need to fix it since it's not essential for the vehicle to run. Well, we got that fixed, we're sitting good for this year. But if something big comes up, if the brake lines need to be replaced and the rotors and something else, means that the one vehicle that EMA has could rack up pretty quick. So I do recommend $3,500 for that. Everything else is status quo. So mileage and travel, well, that is up a little bit, from $380 to $500. Mileage and travel would cover not reimbursement for mileage, since the new guy will be taking the EMA vehicle, but it covers expenses such as food when you're out of county, which he'll need to go out of county. It may cover hotel, which there are 1 to 2 conferences that he'll need to go to throughout the year. Tolls, so on and so forth. I increased that because, like I said, he'll need to go to more trainings. Let's see. Everything else is status quo now. $500 for radio and audio equipment. We're just trying to maintain our radios, whether it's in the EOC or in the Suburban. We have been slowly trying to work towards getting everything ready to switch to digital. When that happens, the first local response agency to switch to digital just happened a month or 2 ago, and that was Watseka Police. So this is something that's coming down the pike. Radio transmission switching from analog to digital. We've been doing good, and we're on track. So $500 once again for that would be appreciated. $225 for education and dues expense. That should cover Mr. Anderson's admittance to 2 separate conferences, one in April, one in September of next year.
Is he local?
Yes, he lives in Watseka. Service contracts, that covers, telephone, excuse me. Well, I'll talk about service contracts, that's the same.
Yes.
That should cover our annual subscription to HyperReach, our mass notification system, and any special expenses that may come up for area-wide. It'll also cover our subscription for our Starcom radio that we have. We have 2 Starcom radios, one in the Suburban, one in the EOC. We only have to pay for one. They're both very old. One of them we acquired a very long time ago. And the terms of us receiving that, this is before me. In terms of us receiving that, we didn't have, as EMA, we did not have to pay a subscription rate. Very unique. But for the second one we got, we had to pay a subscription rate. Those prices have increased, but I think it should be absorbed well enough within the $7,000 total. Most of that will be HyperReach, which I believe is $6,000 and change. But also worthy of note is Starcom used to be an annual subscription rate. Now we're required to pay monthly, which I don't appreciate, but I'm just saying. So that is unfortunate.
Did you ever find out the breakdown of the HyperReach numbers and stuff like that? I was asking you, like
You're asking
landlines versus mobiles, or
that's not information that I could pull from in a report.
I guess how many landlines did we put in when we started it? Do you know that number?
I don't. What I could try to do is look up, because we had to pay AT&T for that list of landlines. I could try to find that report and see how many are in there. And get that answer to you.
I know there's 5 cell phones.
Oh.
My kids, they really
Yeah.
appreciate it going off at 3 a.m.
Yeah,
I'm
and that's
sorry.
that's one of the painful things about weather alerts.
Every time they do an update.
Yeah, whenever there's an update to a winter storm,
Yes.
or if you subscribe to the fog alert warnings, those only go out at 3 a.m. It seems.
How come I turned them all off? Because I found them annoying. that
Yeah.
I've never signed up for anything, but I still get alerts and stuff through my phone until I disabled it. I guess, how do I get those alerts? Without signing up for nothing, I get those.
Well, some
Why would I
phones-
why would I need, I guess,
Are you Apple?
Yeah.
That might be why.
Most smartphones have built into their operating system a way for people to receive emergency alerts. The most severe ones, and you can opt out of them. There are hundreds of different weather-based apps that people can download for free and utilize. Our system also does the weather-based alerts, and yeah, those go off for free, yeah, and it's irritating. HyperReach, you can modify when you sign up what kind of alerts you want to receive. The real benefit that the citizens have with HyperReach, why we pay for a system, is so that way I, or the new guy, or the sheriff, or any of the other fire chiefs that I train can issue an alert.
Yeah.
That's
So
not weather-based.
any alert or even the tornado, if they see it, that'll kick it up before all the other apps.
So a classic example I use is a hazmat. If there's a hazmat situation that's causing a plume of noxious fumes to go over a town, I can draw a polygon on a map and send an alert right then and there to those people. Something that only we can do.
I guess the reason why I'm asking is that I personally, I'm not saying, you said you are signed up, I think Donna says she's.
But I've only ever gotten one alert.
Well, whatever,
One.
yeah, it doesn't matter, the point being is that that's all good and great, but if nobody gets them, what's the point? And I guess, quite frankly, I don't know where I would go other than asking you, but I don't know where I would go to sign up, quite frankly.
Well,
And I guess, and that's me, and I do know you, but 99% of the people I interact with on a day-to-day basis, no offense, don't know who you are, or that we even have an EMEA organization. Not saying that just,
I guess
I think that's just
We
reality.
just have to,
Are you asking, are
Periodically.
you advertising?
Yes.
Where do you,
well,
I don't know
we,
anything about it.
multiple times a
Well, that's
year,
my point, I don't think the average citizen, I mean,
No.
we kinda half-ass know because we're,
multiple
Yeah, I
times a
heard
year,
shared
this gets shared on social media, hey, sign up. I've gotten to the point where I am literally resharing the same post that I've
My
done from a
point
couple
would be-
years ago.
I could probably verify this right now if I looked at the EMEA website. I'm not sure that I liked it or whatever, or a Facebook group. But I'm not sure that I liked it and I'm getting those. The average citizen probably isn't either. I don't know how many people follow
I shared it on
or
my
like or whatever,
Facebook
but
just because.
Another thing is we have a standard pamphlet that whenever EMA goes somewhere, where we're gonna interact with the public, we push like fairs, our biggest opportunity, which was last week, and we pushed out as many pamphlets as we can.
sure.
We do have a lot of mobile signups. One big advantage is the mobile signups. And one thing that this system can do and grow into is the ability to reach cell phones that haven't signed up if one day we connect with IPAWS, Integrated Public Alert Warning System. Something that EMAs can, with proper training and approval by the federal government, can be authorized to then send alerts to even cell phones that are not signed up. That's something that this system allows after we do training and get approval from the federal government, which is a process.
And that works based off of what cell phone, what, if they're pinging off a tower, whatever.
Cell phone.
But
Power is
like
there.
when you get the Amber Alert thing on your phone,
Yes,
it's
it is.
that simple.
It's pretty much exactly like that in layman terms. So
Regardless.
the mass notification system was something that I strive for and I'm very glad that we have, because one thing we noticed is that town warning sirens are not effective. They're great, but they're not effective for reaching many peoples that live on the edge of town or out of town. And we've utilized the system for a couple of years now, and it's important. I highly encourage you
Mr.
guys.
Chairman, I have a question. Could
Who's
you,
ever called me that?
well,
It's very formal.
Mr. Stacy, remind me, because I'm a little foggy, how did we get the Hyper Reach? Originally it was, grant money,
Well,
was it? Remind me how we got that.
I appreciate you bringing that up. One important reminder is that EMA is funded through grant, EMPG, Emergency Management Performance Grant. That has federal money passed to the state, and it covers 50% of the salary and 50% of most other expenses. So when you're looking at the price tag of, I think it's $6,300, remember that we get reimbursed for half of that. When you're looking at the price tag of the salary, remember we get reimbursed for half of that for EMA. Appreciate you bringing that up, thank you, Ms. Cole.
That on 67.
So of the, what'd you say, it cost $6,300 a year? That's okay, I'm not offended by your back.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We get reimbursed for half of the $6,300?
We get reimbursed for half of most EMA expenses, including the mass notification system, 6,300.
Which is the Hyper Link. Or the Hyper Reach.
Okay,
And one other how many vehicles does the EMA have?
One.
alright, I think I'm good unless somebody else has another question.
Well, I mean, I could totally.
Leave it to you to have an answer.
Got to answer, or else I just look dumb. All right. Any other questions? I got a couple more things to say. Any other questions? Okay. I'm leaving this position, obviously, as was previously mentioned, but I do want to remind this finance committee that, and I've been saying this for a couple of years, you need more staff in EMA. Looking at this, the budget for department head salary is growing. I know that's not something county board likes to see because that's property tax money out the door, and I understand that. But EMA needs more staff. The amount of work that's for EMA has been growing due to state requirements, maintaining accreditation. Without accreditation, you don't get grant money. So EMA needs more staff. I highly encourage the county board to consider that. Not this year, next year, you need to start looking at eventually growing EMA to 2 full-time people. And that's the long and short of it. If you wanna look at examples of other counties that do that, a lot of them do. There are a number that don't. But you notice that those that have at least 2 full-time people are able to service their citizens, residents a lot better. They're able to do more planning, they're able to do more exercises, something that I've been struggling to get done. And I know we're rural, I know we have a low population, and I think 2 full-time people would be a great eventual goal to get to for EMA.
Where are you leaving the mitigation plan?
We currently have a grant to pay a contractor. We're in the process of acquiring a contractor. And one important thing with moving over to a new coordinator is I'll be there with him.
How
I'll
much
be-
is the grant? Who's that from?
It's from the federal government, and I gotta be honest, I can't remember how much it is off the top of my head, and I hate to spew a false number at you. It usually is matching, but the state of Illinois has agreed to pick up the matching part, so while we will incur upfront costs, we will be reimbursed 100% for this hazard mitigation plan process.
What's it gonna cost him? Approximately?
I'm sorry, I said I can't remember the number right now,
Oh,
and I have to give you a
of
full.
the grant, but what, do you have an idea of how much it's gonna cost to upgrade the upgrade? I mean, when
Yeah.
you've spoken with contractors, have they thrown out round numbers?
Mhm. And it's all, like I said, it's all covered in the grant. Please don't hold me to this, but I think it's around 50,000.
I won't.
Thank you. I can look that up and get back to you.
Okay, thank you. Any folks? Alright. right, back to Jill.
Alright, so back on page 7, I'll start again, anything on the side here that is blank, I will go over. Sale of property, I always keep at 0. Refund and reimbursements, we always keep at 0 because we don't really expect those, sometimes they just. County rent that's based off of the rent that we get from volunteer services and workforce development, as well as the pretrial services over at the courthouse. So those 3 rentals are in there, and they will become, well, pretrial services is not due for a while, but volunteer services and workforce development will have to be renewed after next year, so those numbers are fine. Farm Services Agency rent is USDA down there, that stays the same every year, that will be coming up in 2024 as well. 911 rental is still good, that one is also next year?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. And then moving down, we have animal registration fees. I'm gonna go over it now, even though it's animal control, because I gotta do that eventually anyway, so. The animal registration fees, we're on track for 44,470. The reason I put 55 in there is a little lower than this year, but higher than the expected. We are starting to try to go after some of those with turning in tickets over at the state's attorney's office now that Jim has 2 attorneys, so hopefully we can increase those a tad. Also, those fees, they will vary because we now, since 2016, have 3-year tags available as well as 1 year, so they'll vary year to year on how much we get on that. Public safety fines and fees, left that at 4,500. We are on track to be a little higher at 79, which I'm glad to see, but I also don't want to get overzealous and budget that more. Based off of a trend, I was pretty comfortable leaving it at 45. The animal control dog claim fees, we don't collect those anymore. They're rolled into the safety fines and fees. There wasn't a need to separate those out now that we have the building, so we went ahead and I combined those 2. So moving down, interest other county office, just based off of a trend, I put that at 1,000. Any other zeros I have on here? Transfer from farm account, I left that at 0. The reason being is I put it in capital improvements. Now, I did that because the general fund was looking pretty decent at where we're at versus revenues and expenditures, and the capital county improvement fund was sitting a little low with some of the capital improvements I know we don't have proposed for next year. Always wanna keep that fund healthy, just in case we have some unknowns, like, a chiller goes out or something like that. We can always change, that's just my opinion. County highway, I did notice, and I apologize, I need to change that to 10,000. I got, the budget worksheets back from Greg, and he did leave that at 10,000, so we were gonna add 10,000 in there. I don't have, health department budget worksheets, which is normal, I will not have those until after the health department finalizes their budget, and then he will present. Normally, in the past, the health administrator will give an update at the August 3rd finance meeting, but it won't be, more than likely you won't have a final budget until much later, so just FYI. Negotiable is still in there for all of Lisa Hines and Brian, like she had said. The other 0, donations and miscellaneous, I always leave at 0. Grant revenue, I leave at 0. And that's it on revenue, so. Page 26. Alright, page 26, I'm projecting that AFSCME is gonna come back with, I know we've talked about raising starting salary, anywhere from 10, 15, 20%, AFSCME. Realistically, we're gonna have to go up approximately 7% to stay in line with minimum wage requirements. So I went ahead and put in, anywhere from 7 to 8%. I put an 8% in for salaries for myself, Amanda, and Lacey. Those will be dependent on what AFSCME ends up being, because even though Amanda and myself are not AFSCME employees, just like with Chris Drake or anybody else on the salary page that I gave you, all of those employees, even though they're not all AFSCME employees, we generally follow the AFSCME contract. Alright, so my office expense, I left the same, paper and computer paper, computer and copier paper, I left that the same. Systems expense, I lowered that about 5,000. Reason being, we don't have anything scheduled in the works. Last year we did a lot of big projects, so lowered that down to 45. I left publications the same, mileage and travel the same, education expenses the same. I look for a lot of free online classes to do. I did just pay to do a class through GFOA, which is the Government Financial Officers Association, and I believe that was like $250. So anything I find, I try to take classes that are relatively cheaper. Software contracts, licenses went up a little bit, but that's just because licenses went up a little bit. I got projections over here, you'll notice on the bottom, under software contract licenses, the software contracts that we are paying for currently. So service contracts, I lowered it just a little bit. Everybody has been doing really well about getting their requests in for Tuesday services, which has worked out phenomenal. Adam is much more acclimated with our systems and the way things run between us, the courthouse and highway, and tends to fix things pretty quickly, and he gets through quite a bit of tickets in one day.
Why's your year to date relatively so high? Is that normal?
You know, I looked at that, I apologize, I'm gonna have to take another look at that, I think that I may have a formula error in there.
Okay.
So, yeah, that
We're not gonna be that.
I'm
high.
not gonna pay attention to that, yeah.
Okay.
Maintenance and repairs, I left at 500, and contingency, I left at 15,000.
What about, you're gonna have Bernie look at these licenses or whatever, just to, or you to see, or you know that those are right, I mean.
The cost of these?
Yeah.
The cost of these are what we currently pay plus 5%. They technically go up, or not technically, they tend to go up about 5% each year. But I do have a request in for Bernie to give me some updated numbers once he gets those.
I thought he presented how Springfield was gonna pay these temporarily for some security. Remember that?
I wasn't there that day, so.
He talked about, yeah, that Ellen made an agreement for internet security through a firm, and Bernie was happy with that firm. And
Oh, with CloudStrike?
could, yeah, it makes
I
sense.
mean, it's ringing a bell, but.
And I don't know if that replaces any of our existing licenses.
He should be here next month, right?
Yeah, I'll have to look.
Because it must be the middle month, right?
Well, none of these are
And-
He
huge.
wasn't here in July, and I wasn't here in May, so it
Yeah, then it must be
May.
that.
It must be August.
Yeah, maybe. So,
Or he wasn't.
so any other questions on that page? Then I'll go to page 27, which is the county board page. Department head and assistant is of course the chairman and the vice chairman. Those salaries did not change. I left county board members at 8,000. This kind of fluctuates on who turns in their payroll sheets, who doesn't. Pretty comfortable at 8,000 based off a trend. Committee services or committee meetings, I did up that 3,000. Based off a trend, and it looks like if everybody still continues to come to the meetings like they have, we're gonna be a little bit higher, but again, that's a floating number based on the availability of committee members to attend the committee, so. Office expense, I left at 1,000, publications left at 1,000, mileage and traveling, I increased about $1,400 just off the forecast, and then we did get a relatively higher mileage rate from the previous year, so just kind of a little cushion there. Dues are always about the same, but those get reimbursed to us, so that'll end up being a wash. It just doesn't show on here, because of course this is the expense line. Legal fees left that at 10,000, which is what we always usually leave that at. Auditor fees, I did increase those to 80,600. The past couple of years I've had to include the single audit, which we've never had to do in the past. That was something new with COVID because we got so much federal funding. And there has been quite a bit of additional audit services, working out some of the grant, reimbursement issues and expense issues. Went through a lot of turnover in the health department, and then with the investigation, they took a bunch of our paperwork, so that's been kind of a nightmare. So hopefully that will lower going forward, but just to be on the safe side.
So
think it
I
needs
went
to be
there and
a-
talked with them last year about that,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't like it, but I guess how much of that, can we split out how much incremental costs there's related to the health department? Because we basically, I think I went there about last August and they were
Yeah.
not happy about me wanting them
Yeah.
to pay for the single audit and all those things. But I told them that, okay, well, if you guys have additional fees going forward, then we're gonna put it in your budget, or
Mm-hmm.
ask you to put it in your budget and have them pay.
We'd have to talk to CLA about them invoicing that out directly, because I don't know how much time they spend where and on what. I just get a breakdown of services when we get the engagement letters.
Because I just know, like with the single audit stuff, if I recall, it's been a year, there was this huge increase in audit fees. It's related to the health department, getting all these grants and stuff. Portion of it was, there was portion related to ARPA and all that stuff too, but it was a big dollar number, and I don't remember what it was even now, but it was
Right.
$10,000, $20,000, something like that we had to pay extra. The county paid instead of the health department, and they had their underwear in a bunch about a bunch of stuff that
Well,
day, so.
Just speaking this year, I've had to do a bunch of additional work in trying to tie out some of their grant reimbursements to the expenditures. Because they've had, and no, I'm not placing blame anywhere, but they've had 3 or 4 turnovers in that position in the past year and a half, and it's kind of a mess. But, yeah, but anyways, I'm comfortable at 80,000, hopefully going forward, we'll see how that ends up, but I can talk to Faith and Hope and see if there's any way they can kind of invoice that differently, but
I think we need to ask them that, and if we're, again, I don't know what the latest status is on investigations and stuff and all that stuff, but your guys' office, I remember we had this whole long discussion back then of how many hours you guys were spending dealing with that, which technically is not a county issue,
no.
and that's, they have piles of money, and we don't.
Yeah.
And it's their expense. I don't think, I agree with you. I mean, if there's a way to delineate those things, maybe the extra work has gone down, it doesn't sound like entirely, but I think now is the time we need to get it in their budget and tell them, because they're gonna, when do they do that?
I'm
August
assuming
normally
they're
they
starting it
talk,
now,
yeah.
yeah,
They normally talk the night before our August meeting, I think, is when
Usually,
she
yeah,
present,
and then they can-
she would always present.
yeah, either a finalized budget or a preliminary budget.
And maybe we
You can
need
always
to
ask
follow up,
for
give Erica a heads up that,
a bigger transfer is needed to the general.
well, and we need to figure out what a rational number is, that if there's additional audit fees, I mean, there's no good reason why the county pays those on their behalf. And if your guys' office is doing incremental work, they have their own people, and if they're not doing their job, then they need to reimburse us for it. Because then you're not doing county work. We had this whole discussion, but there was a complete bigger shit show going on at that time, so they didn't really wanna hear it, but
No. Okay, and if there's no questions, I'll move on to page 28, which is the general fund other. Proof insurance number, that is the county, county's portion of the general fund employees, and I'll show you how I do that when we go on to the insurance side here shortly. Employee benefits, this is based off a trend, so when, employees retire, they're eligible for half rate sick pay, and this is where that comes out of. Soil and water conservation, honestly, that's been at 2250 budgeted like that for the past, I'm gonna use the old saying, that's how it's been budgeted for the past 10 years, so seems to be working off a trend, so we're just gonna keep that in there. Now, Industrial Development Association, that's IDA. I have emailed Ms. Crawford a handful of times, just to get it in writing, what their request is gonna be, because I like to have things in writing. When you go back, then it's not, hey, you just picked a number, Jill, no, I have it in writing. I have not received that in writing, however, I do attend the item meetings, so I do know that they are going to want to request 25,000. However, I have not received that in writing yet. Birth and death certificate, this is $400, stayed the same. Regional Office of Education, they are requesting $95,282. Now, he is on for tomorrow at 9:30, so I'm not gonna talk about that too much, that's just their request. Transfer to joint dispatch, it was discussed way back when, 126,000. Transfer to capital improvement, I'm putting that back to zero, cause that fund has built up a little bit. And then contingency, in the past, we've had it at 50,000, last year, or this year I have it at 25. I'm gonna increase it off of 50, just based on what we were looking at with the overview being in the positive minus the probation. I wanted to keep it at 50, I can always lower that back down to 25. Let's see here. Moving forward, page 30. Page 30 is the group insurance fund, so page 31 is kind of all of my jumbled up configuration here of how I come up with these numbers. So I did project a 10% increase. I know that Susie was here last month talking about it. She's hoping to get us lower than 10%. I just always project higher until she gets us a more stable number. So everything off of this group insurance sheet is worked off of the worksheet on page 31. Basically goes off the 3 plans we have, how many participants we have, the county's portion, the employee contribution. On the bottom, you'll see the retiree, which is, that depends on if anybody passes or whatnot, that'll fluctuate. And I list out here all of the 911, joint dispatch, highway, public health, because they reimburse the insurance fund for their portions, so. Let's see here. Any questions there?
Those, column headings on page 30. Like, the other column headings on other pages talk about 23 year-to-date forecast, and
I
this
see that
says,
now. Those should be changed.
these are actually then,
They're fine, I just
Current,
didn't,
okay.
yeah, they're current, I just didn't, change the headings on here for some reason. Which I can do. Okay. So then, let's see here, page 33 is unemployment compensation, so this is a levied item. Even that levy, it requests at 7,000, interest budgeting that around 1,000. Transfer from other funds, that's gonna be, health department portion, veterans assistance portion, and then you'll see the JJC, which is the grant, the juvenile, courts over at the courthouse. They have a grant for that, they pay for that out of the grant. Joint dispatch portions and 911 portions, and then our state unemployment tax, projecting that to be around 21,233 for next year, and you'll see on the bottom there that there's the expense assumptions going off of our current employees and what this year's rate is and our base amount. I'll get a new one in January. I can't project any closer than using this year's. So as of June 27th though, there was a balance of 186,487 in that account, so even though it's budgeted in a negative, that's why, because we do have a positive in that fund. Alright, so 35, workers' comp, falls same line as unemployment at the top, so you'll see the property taxes is what we levy, interest, and then all the other funds that pay into this account, or pay into this fund. And then our workers' comp insurance, projecting it around 129, 183, again, based off the number of employees we have, using a trend of the rate percentages per their $100 salary, per $100 of their salary. So as of the 27th of June, that sat at $74,815. I have us in the positive at about $210. Fund 36 is the liability fund. levying 185, gonna raise that just a tad because as of 6/27, the balance was 46,114. I'd like to see that increase a little bit. Interest, budgeting $1,000 out of there. Liability insurance. This is a number, a projected, preliminary number that I got from ICRMT. So, and they are our liability insurance holder. And it is lower because I know we budgeted 200 this year, we're projecting 214, but Myron gave me information, he's bringing more information on lowering the cost of our liability insurance for the old county courthouse as well as this building. So I'm projecting that being lower. Page 37, IMRF. IMRF still has a healthy balance in it of 3.327. So it is in the negative because I'm gonna levy 0 again for this year. You'll see the similar at the top with the interest on investments and the transfers from other funds. The county share of retirement, and then there's also county share of ECO, which is an older IMRF policy that the new employees don't have. 911 portion and joint dispatch portion are listed on there as well. The rate going from 2022 to 2023 decreased tremendously. I won't know those rates again until the end of this year, possibly January for the next year. Page 38 is the retirement FICA fund, again, gonna levy 368,000. You'll see, I always put 0 for refunds and reimbursements, interest amount expected at 2,000. Similar with the transfer from other funds, veterans, JJC, 911 joint dispatch. Those are sheets that I make out for them and I email them to the department heads monthly and then they reimburse, through the treasurer's office. So the county share of FICA, projecting that at about 430,000 for next year. That account has approximately 829,000 as of June 27th, but it's budgeted at a positive 129. Okay, moving on to 42. County farm, refunds and reimbursements. So based off of, so refunds, reimbursement, I increased that just a tad. We'll see where fertilizer costs and all that's gonna end up for next year. Farm rent, that's still under contract, so that's still gonna be $151,038.60. Interest and investments, $300. Farm expense, I wasn't sure, doesn't seem like there's anything in the works, I left that at 30,000. I do not have anything going to the general fund, but I do have 110,000 going to capital improvements to help build that up a little bit. The balance on county farm as of June 27th was $170,902. And that transfer won't happen until after the farm rent is paid for FY24. Okay, so page 43 is, this one is just, it's a leftover fund from when the recycling center was over there by Crescent City. So the only thing we pay out of here is we do one recycling event with the city of Watsika. We pay half of those costs. There is only $6,000 in that fund. So we may next year have to talk about what we're gonna do with that fund.
We could pull some money out of the CD.
Right, thank you, Kurt. But you'll still have to talk about
CD system, what, like 280,000?
I don't know that, you would know that, I don't know, I don't get that information.
It's on, well, it's on a,
She has all the CDs together.
well,
So-
well, in that, yeah, it's listed, but it's somewhere around 280,000.
But this year we're fine, next year we'll have to talk about that if you wanna pull some money out or what we're gonna do with that. Alright, let's see here, we're jumping all the way to page 87. Trying to keep us, sorry, I'm a little behind. Time. Page 87 is county mental health. All I do is I email out for a request on this one. And I usually reach out to Luana. Chad did help me out this year and sent me an email. They're gonna be requesting 600,000, so that's a levied amount. 88 is the 377 board. I reach out to Lou Ellen Strom. Usually she comes in and sees me in person and writes it out, so I enjoy getting to see her every year. But their request is gonna be 712,819. That is an increase levy. And then 90 is historical documents. This comes from the Historical Society. I emailed them, they gave me their request. They are requesting to levy $11,200, which is the same as they have requested for this year. You'll also see on there the transfer from court document, that's between them and Lisa Hines, that she transfers that from her automation account, so. Any other questions for me? Those are beginnings of.
Keith, you got those CDs,
I tried to talk fast.
Keith got the CDs, you said they're all combined.
Well, when Callie does her trial balance sheet, I don't know, I just see a total CD amount. I don't know like if there's a specific CD for the waste fund or if there's a specific CD, I think, for
Highway has one.
Is that
yeah, so we'll have to get the breakdown of CDs from her.
Do you think those actual revenues cited here for that $200,000 CD is accurate, or have those CDs been revisited? Then you know who's involved with all that.
That comes from the treasury office, so,
Okay.
yeah.
I remember a few years back, we moved into a really good chunk of the CD because of.
Right. I just thought there was some numbers if you do like this up from here, it's gonna be relevant. I wasn't how much interest
I have, but
here that I
I
saw.
can,
Yeah.
I'll adjust the market today and give updated numbers. I did it just to take a look from my own, so it doesn't increase it too much, especially since some of those are 10%. I don't wanna spit out a number to you, because I really haven't, it's been a week or two since I've done that. But no, I'll adjust them, if we decide we wanna adjust them 8%, then I'll adjust them and give you an update on that. I have a better idea.
Roughly, how much money we're talking about?
You know, this year was a rough year because they're talking about increasing the starting wage. I know Bree wanted to do 25% above that, 20%. I don't know what happened.
There you go.
I just kinda let them ride this year. But after today, I'll let them ask lots and I'll adjust them.
Thank you, sir.
I tried to work fast. Usually I give myself a half hour. I don't remember from Google on Wednesday that I had to try to fit in for, well, JJC will be easy, I'm gonna have to go through theirs because Jennifer can't come today. A lot to say about theirs, it's all great.
The last one would take that much time.
No, Jennifer's will be quick, JJC, I'm just gonna review with you guys, it's Jennifer McTaggart couldn't be here today. But that's all grant funded account, so. Now, if that Eric Raven and Chris Drake don't talk long, maybe we'll get back on track.
Maybe we can talk at the same time.
I'm gonna say that all depends on questions.
I'm just giving you a hard time. Chris, they cannot get over that there's no big projects on that 5-year plan.
Well, that's a good thing.
There's always something, yes.
I mean, if you need projects, I can give you a project or two.
Well, I
Jill, do we have any large ongoing long-term claims on our health people,
on what?
on our health insurance right now?
We do, we have, what did she say, five large claimants? I think one of them is retiring at the end of this month. I know he's been one in the past, I don't know if he currently still is or not, but, yeah, we have five.
Oh, the light bulb just went on.
Well, him and his wife had had some health issues in the past few years.
I remember.
Yeah, I won't be here August 3rd.
Okay. Nice. For fun or?
Simulate it again with a rough number, how much does that actually cost, because I have no
Nice.
idea on more adults, how much it's like the last time. And that's part of that discussion as well. My oldest one actually is functioning like an adult, so she can't go to He's winning the fish for last semester.
Yep, I remember those days.
He came in and he bailed.
Or did he go back to get
He
CD?
won't, yeah, he won't, yeah, he probably went to go look at CDs, but he doesn't go far from his drinks, so.
Should we move it to the table?
Or we like to give it to him all the time.
Hi.
Just try to see.
Chad, can I sit in your seat?
Oh, sure, you can play around with the desk, you can leave me money.
I showered this week,
Gum.
so.
You can leave coffee cards for me. He's gonna come in and look for it there.
Yesterday, I know.
Tell them we really don't care what's in the waste fund.
Is that Kurt's?
Yeah.
It's 225 or 230, it really doesn't matter.
I am.
We got them lined up in the hall out there. Paid taxes. Yeah, my friends are.
What's that for? What are they here for?
They pay their taxes.
Is that what it is?
He's on the phone.
And playing a little early, aren't
He's on the phone.
Well, I don't.
30 days, I think.
Should we have
Nineteen.
Drake go? Since he's here.
Oh, yeah, we can always.
Take my laptop, use it for every.
Might as well.
We'll do Chris's
He's
number,
here.
or on page 9 for our purposes. That is the, well,
It's 110, 210, Sheriff.
Clint does that.
Okay, fine.
Clint's doing the, he presented last year.
Okay, move on to 29.
29, page 29.
That's fine, Chris. I didn't know if you, I couldn't remember, so I just put it on there.
It's 110, 710.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right off the bat, the service contracts, which have been slowly decreasing every year. Our mowing contract is up this year. It was a 3-year contract, and every year hauls are the least expensive. And we have sort of been forewarned that that's gonna be going up with the price and cost of everything. Joe and I spoke a little bit about it, and the budget is 15,000. If we upped that maybe to 18,500 for that budget line, that might be sufficient. I mean, if they increased, assuming they bid again, I mean, a 30% increase, that'd be $3,600. If they increase it 20%, we're looking at $2,400. And if Sheriff follows suit as well on the service contract line for the 210, which is also 15,000, I think that would cover it.
Okay.
I know I'm sounding kind of
When does that
vague.
go out, August or?
It'll go out over the winter.
Usually September.
And they usually have been extremely low compared to everyone else.
Right.
Like crazy low.
I recall that.
It'll be-
That's how they do it for that.
Alright.
And I do remember the last Nature's View bid it the last time. And there was another bidder as well, but I couldn't tell you what those bids were. I just know they were substantially more than Hall's. So,
Okay,
we could put 18,500 in there for the time.
1 year.
leave it there for now.
So,
Okay, telephone,
down to the maintenance and repair,
Oh, yeah, those are.
okay,
20,000, I'd like to just leave that the same. It's working out just fine for me. The household supplies, the 6,000, I'd like to leave that the same.
Okay.
We're able to continue to switch products and whatnot instead of increasing prices, it works well with me.
okay,
Well, and Chris, if you don't mind, the
Please.
salaries, he's left at 4%, except for the part-time help. We were paying 22, increasing that to 25 an hour.
It's been 22 for 3 years
3
now
years.
and never changed.
Bumped it.
If we could bump that up,
He doesn't get used that often.
no.
okay.
I think last winter we wound up paying him under $400, so.
Yeah.
Almost.
We flip flopped.
Oh, okay. What time am I? I'm almost done anyway.
Yeah.
The capital improvement line, the 145,710,
Page 40.
Page 41.
the heat pumps, 20,000. I know annually, most of that doesn't get touched or used, but it's a nice cushion to have because that covers the cooling tower outside, that covers all of these heat pumps.
If we have to replace one of these heat pumps, that's half of that, that'll be almost $10,000 right there. I would like to leave that 20 there if possible.
Okay.
And then I'd like to talk real quick about the parking lots. We did nothing this year to them. I would like to continue to try to maintain them. Next up would be in 2024, the North Courthouse lot and where the deputies park back in there. And I'd like to put 30,000 in for that.
Okay.
And then moving on to 2025, over here at the administrative center, I have 45 in for that, and the reason for that, other than the sheer size, there's going to be a couple areas that are going to need cut out and patched. The south entryway, we did this entryway over here a couple years ago, and now this one, it's crumbling apart, there's gonna be some patching that's gonna need done. So 45 I had in there. And then moving on another year to 2026, that would be time to do the south courthouse parking lot again and the horseshoe driveway out front. To have that done, and I have 30 in for that as well.
Okay.
Those are just, and other than that, so that
Brings, am I reading this wrong? This,
Yeah.
page 39?
Yeah, so then,
So then we should be at the heat pumps for 20, for this year, or for 24.
Yeah.
We should be at the heat pumps for 20, the deputy parking lot for 30. Correct? And then the BB&T loan comes out of that line item as well. But that's it for the what you got in there for 24.
correct.
Okay. So does that number match?
so the parking lots for next
Oh,
year
you got
is
it
just
over here too,
30,000,
sorry.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's just gonna be the courthouse north lot.
Okay,
Next
sorry,
year's
I was
the-
looking at this.
No,
chart.
you're fine, you're fine. I'm noticing that there's a,
Yeah, there's
It's supposed to be 30 instead of 90.
yep.
it doesn't match, but your numbers over here match.
So you have an original sheet or fine.
Okay. Very good.
So parking lot's 30, heat pumps is 20, and then the BB&T loan I
And then the future
scheduled.
years, so we can.
75.
Yep.
Okay. Okay,
I think that
that's
covers it.
good, yeah, thank you. All right, Kurt. All right, we'll talk about revenues first, if you.
Revenues are just a guess because they said they'll send me the numbers in August. So, we'll change some of them once I find out. They said they should have some hard estimates for us in August, for some of those, so. I just kind of conservatively put what we've got right now, and like I said, those can be changed. Hopefully, some of those will be going up, so.
What's this penalties and cost of interest? Might not be yours, but I just see it.
After the tax sale. Something to do with tax sale.
Yeah, that's tax sale penalties. What the fire, what they pay for that. I guess I don't have my revenue sheet. Which one is that?
Okay, we'll give you a minute.
Oh, here's, yeah, use my guys.
Oh, okay.
Page 7. Up towards the top.
Those should be the reimbursements. When people after tax sale or whatever, then when they go in and pay brand and stuff like that, some of that's all part of that number right in there. Back taxes and stuff like that.
Is there a reason why we didn't have anything in the budget for last year? And I guess it just stuck out to me because it's 0 so far this year.
I guess I didn't know that was mine to budget at the time.
But there's nothing that's coming.
It won't come in till
The end.
the end of the year,
Okay.
like in August, like October.
Okay.
October, November.
Very good. and the other numbers, you think are kind of just in line with where we're at?
With what we've been roughly getting, yes, because like I said, I got an email from the treasurer saying in August, they should be able to tell us a little more about what we're supposed to get for sales and income tax and replacement taxes.
Is he doing that from the floor in his office like he posts constantly on Twitter?
I have no idea, so.
Maybe he gets better information than the guy constantly posts on Twitter and he's laying on the floor in his office with his computer.
Oh, I've never seen that, so I didn't.
It's a little weird, but the state treasurer.
Oh, that guy, yeah.
Mike Ferris.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of Secretary of State.
Julia.
He's always on the ground there, yeah.
I have nothing to do with him.
Okay, sorry. I got my Springfield men mixed up.
No, yeah, Mike Ferris, you'd know, because he's like 6'6".
Okay, yeah, wrong guy.
Maybe I.
He's from Central, he's from Gifford, so, but he's a Democrat, so. Anyway. So yes, like I said, so some of those numbers, like for sales and all that, we'll just put these in for now until we get some hard numbers, what they're supposed to be sending me, so we'll find out. Before we get our final budget, I should have some updates on those for revenues, so.
As far as if you just mailed out the property tax stuff, and I know technically assessment only gives us that number, but I mean we should know that number for what we collect in 2024, right? Because that's the 2023 number.
No, well, what I'm collecting today is for last year.
Right.
These are next year's.
23.
Yeah, that's what we're anticipating next year's taxes.
These are next year.
We're always
Sorry, I was going the opposite direction.
and it depends on what they assess. I know Bob was talking about assessing a few things before he actually leaves, and he assessed a lot last year. What did he put on, like 5 million on the tax roll last year
Yeah,
or
he's got
something like
another
that?
5 to put on.
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah. I mean, you can get a draw.
And the equalizer
That's
from
what
the
you're
state
getting in
next
right now.
year.
Well, I'm actually getting 22 taxes payable in 23.
That's right. Both of them.
All right, we're getting a lot of bills back because people forgot, oh yeah, I forgot to change my address.
Okay, so
Purposely,
I guess unless somebody's got more questions on that, we'll go to your expenses. Shoot,
You're looking at 110, 430, current page 22 for the rest.
22 for us.
I think it's 23. 22 and
22.
What's your salaries?
Yeah, that's salary.
Every year.
Okay.
So now salaries,
Office expense.
the only thing I will tell you about that, some of you may know, I think John knows about, the state is trying to put my salary, Brian's salary, and Lisa's salary at 80% of what the state's trying to get, so we get the same amount of benefit. But they're saying that can be implemented if it's supposed to pass this fall, but we don't have to wait until our term is up before it's up to you guys to decide if you want to implement it. So,
You're just waiting. You're fine.
I'm not saying you have to, I'm just saying that might be out there. Like I said, there's pending legislation that's supposed to pass this
You're
fall.
getting dogs back if you get an increase in pay.
Send it to his house.
Right.
Legal location.
I got it.
Okay, postage,
Page 23.
yeah, page 23, but we budgeted the same amount last year, well, so I kind of left it the same because Brian shouldn't have as many mailings this year, I think she told me, so.
And you indicated the debt note was gonna
She's
save
got
us like
2
$6
elections
grand.
next year though.
Right.
So.
So hopefully, so that's why I just budgeted, but since the postage went up,
Right.
I just kind of left it that way. And who knows how many more times they'll raise it next year, so.
Kurt, I may
By
have
your stamps now.
bumped that.
Forever stamps.
Postage went up, and she's got 2 elections next year.
Yeah, but Diane told me they shouldn't have to do as many mailings. How do they have 2 elections? They have
Primary.
I'm just looking at
2024.
the last presidential, we were at 64,000, so. I think we
Okay,
should
well,
bump
that's fine, if you
it.
wanna.
I mean, if we use it, great, if not, great, whatever, but I think we should bump it 5.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, but they still gotta do mail-ins and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Better to go higher than not need it.
Okay. 64. Automation.
The only thing on my expenses that I changed, revenue I left pretty much the same, the only thing was I broke out a little more for mileage, took some of my automation, put mileage and travel in there, because I have some accountants and stuff that I go to.
Okay. 69. 69 solar farm.
Yeah, that's a solar farm decommission.
Okay, nothing really there.
I do have one question. That would pertain to you guys. Will we be getting any solar farms this year? You know, like
What
the
do you mean
ones-
by will we begin?
Well, like the ones in Sheldon, like, so the solar farm decommission, that the money we got in 20 was for that Louis K. Road.
I don't think that they'd be ready to give any commission deposits, decommissioning deposits this year because it happens further down the line.
Okay.
They post,
No, you're talking about next year, there'll probably be some.
I'm sorry, you meant, well, he said this year, so I
Well,
thought.
I'm talking about the budget year.
Budget
So
year,
for
I'm sorry.
next year, yeah.
Yeah, there's a chance that there could be.
And that would be from the ones in Sheldon.
I don't know, I've heard, talked to attorneys and said there's a lot of requests down in the Buckeye area and their stuff. So,
So
if
you
these
guys
people
wanna-
are on hold, according to Julie,
Okay.
need more time.
So I mean, you guys wanna budget something in there for that?
What's it gonna benefit us? Because you can't really do anything with it.
Doesn't benefit, your money goes into the. Right, I know, but I'm just saying, that's fine, I didn't know if you wanted to put something in there.
Yeah, no,
No sense in guessing.
Okay.
it's like $300 million. We'll see what happens at the theater.
Okay.
Mine, I
70
need quitting already, so.
trust fund.
What page is that? 70?
Next one.
That is, I'm holding, I've got a payout of somebody's estate yet, but I've also got probably 400,000 that I don't have to pay out for another couple of years, so we'll just leave it at the 5.
Okay.
I'm holding Mrs. Root's estate. Because she's got 2 heirs in Mexico that nobody can find. The last name is Gonzalez, and I think it's Gonzalez. Whatever.
My name in the courthouse.
Hey, if you can prove it, I would be glad to have the money.
If they never find them, how does that,
Well, I have to send it to the state, and the state deals with it.
deals with the, under the treasurer?
Yeah. So they said I could send it early, but I'll just wait another year. I won't send it. We'll keep it in the interest.
Okay, number 71. Indemnity.
That's from, usually that's why we get some fees we collect from the tax sale.
I've added the notes on there,
Oh, okay.
on the bottom there, just. Seems like the first couple of years I did this, we had the same questions, so I just included the notes.
Okay.
Yeah, so hopefully I will not get sued in that this year like we did last year. Somebody said it was under another administration that they didn't tell the guy when he lost his property how he was gonna lose it, and then Jim Devine didn't want to fight it, so we settled. Could have been 100,000, but we settled for 7. And now I've set precedents to the state of Illinois.
Number 72. Revolving loan.
We need to change that probably, do we not, Joe?
We do, this was done prior to a revolving loan meeting that happened, last week, and I'll have clear numbers on that, hopefully,
For the next
yeah, well, yeah,
August meeting probably.
yeah,
Because that's gonna be,
Or well, September, whatever. It doesn't impact the general loan. Or
No.
general fund, but we can update it.
and there's currently in that fund, 520,000.
Okay. Sale and air fund,
Left, like I said, I left revenue about the same, it's roughly, it runs pretty even. And that, like I said, that's money we received in November from the tax sale.
okay, page 74, tax redemption,
Same way, this is money. Let's see. Tax redemption is, when our trustee sells, properties that the county has on, or that he obtains from the tax sale, people hadn't, other tax buyers that don't buy the taxes, that this property goes to the tax buyer, our county tax buyer. And then he has a sale in September or whatever, August, and tries to sell those. Basically, it's a lot of lots and stuff to try and get them back on the tax roll, so.
okay, 75, county trustee,
That is same part of the tax redemption fund is also same way with the county trustee.
okay, 76, county redemptions. Property tax sales,
Yep.
okay. Mobile home
And
tax.
mobile home tax, I left it at 25. Hopefully this fall, we're gonna start selling mobile homes. So hopefully that will go. So we have some tax people that are, people who owe taxes on those mobile homes that I have no way of enforcing. We put a lien on them, but I have no way of collecting that money. So I'm gonna sell them now at the tax sale. So if they don't start paying, a lot of these people hopefully will bring their back taxes up. And if they don't pay it, the taxes will be sold just like they did on regular property. And we'll either clean up our, clean up our mobile homes, or they'll, find out that there's some out there that are gone and nobody ever told us, because
What happens?
so.
That should be it for you.
Okay.
Question.
Sure.
Can you think, in your area of expertise, of any revenue sources that we could consider raising to generate revenue?
I know Breen had talked about having somebody come in to do a fee study. And I guess I can check to see with other counties I think most of my fees are in line with what state statute says, but I'll see, I've got a treasurer's conference coming up. See if there's some fees, maybe some of our fees we can raise, I'll find out.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Did you change your address on it?
I was at
All
the
right.
fair and a woman said, "Are you cleared out?"
Chris,
And I said,
so
"No,
we're on to Mr. Raymond.
He sent me a.
Now you can finally
Should
call
be
me
cut
out.
and dry and easy, right? Thank you, guys.
I don't anticipate this one's gonna be a long one because a lot of it's already been discussed, thankfully.
I like this process. Get one headache out of the way
I'm
in
just saying.
April or May. Or
So-
whenever we did that.
It is kind of
We're on
a,
page 85 for our books, which
So-
is the joint dispatch one.
joint dispatch is still kind of a headache right at the moment because we have, so I'm gonna start off with 23, which is our current year that we're dealing with. We're still going through negotiations. So as long as we're going through negotiations, we don't have a signed contract. So some of their salaries, we're gonna be paying them back pay, all the way back to 12/1. So there's quite a few steps that have been in there, and depending on how much longer it goes, long story and the short of it, the 40,000 in projected cash in the FY 23 forecast is nowhere near accurate, because that's based on a 2.5% salary increase per step. I believe we're around the 4% TA area right now, which means tentative agreement. So, based on that, I utilized Jill's numbers for the salary, which should be on the following page for those that are interested in looking at it. So long story and the short of it, total salaries, this also includes an overtime budget of $96,000. Brings their salaries up to $558,938.85. The good thing about this particular budget, it's all salaries, so there's not a lot of wiggle room. I don't put a whole bunch of bells and whistles into this, so there's not a whole bunch to actually discuss with it. So the parts that were discussed, I'm gonna move you back up into the revenues. 126 for the county, 126 for the city of Watseka. Everybody seemed copacetic with that. Back in January, January, February, March, whenever we actually discussed all of that. Because right now we're using the 4% increase, some of those numbers still are gonna have some wiggle room until we know what the contract is truly gonna be. Hopefully we plan to
Clear, we had, maybe you don't remember or whatever, me, John, the mayor, I don't remember who all was there, Eric. Anyways, we kind of came to a Watseka and the board member, you had
Kurt Marcotte, who's
Yeah.
also
There was
on the ETSB.
ETSB board members there. Had a little powwow because the historic problem is Watseka approves their budget back in May, and then we, ETSB and Joint Dispatch approve these budgets in September, or well, technically November.
Along with the
We're going
county.
through this and then it screws them up because anyway, so we tried to have a little powwow, and the long and short of it was we increased all of our contributions by 5%, was how we got from 120
I believe
to
it was
126.
I believe it was like around 6%, because we needed a little bit of wiggle room in there because we didn't know what the contract was truly gonna be.
But that's kind of what happened.
So some of these numbers will change. We'll find out once we actually get through the contract, but we're trying to do the best we can to pad out appropriately.
Yep.
Transfer for fire, volunteer ambulance, Riverside is going to be another contract for 3 years. Again, this is a situation where Chairman Scher will work with Riverside and develop that contract, but again, this is all dependent on negotiations. So without a contract, kind of hard to have without set numbers. So put a projected number in there to do the best we could. Transfer from police is another one at $19,848.73. And then transfer from public safety at $157.5. Total revenue $719,224.28. The rest of it is salary, benefits, a little bit in training, and the retirement, which is IMRF. Questions?
Nope.
Okay. I do have ETSBs. Was that included in this?
No.
Yeah, Jill? Okay.
So you're being, finance meeting Thursday?
Which is good because ETSB was originally slated to have a July meeting and I was hoping to kind of present this so we could have a conversation about it. They unfortunately did not have a quorum, so
Yeah, generally I have to do.
it works out.
Joint dispatch during the hearings, and then for ETSB, you just report whether you have one or not on the finance meeting.
We'll have something to at least discuss. The good news is originally what I have in here, if the $222.54.01, the original number that we had during our meeting with the city of Watseka was almost 240. So if the padding in these numbers are close, the ETSB should be happier because they're getting a little bit of cost savings. They've got some capital improvements that are coming that are going to be quite expensive. We're finding out that we may need to do something different with our radios. So there may be a additional request out of public safety tax from the ETSB directly this year. Again, once we actually have a conversation, I'll have more fine-tuned figures to give to you.
Okay. Well, sounds like you need more numbers.
I'll get you more numbers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, it has its own fund. It's
Okay.
Fund 200, sorry. Alright, I'll run you down
Junior
JJC,
courts,
yeah, real quick.
juvenile, whatever.
Page 56, so the drug-free communities funded actually is under the state's attorney. He is the one that oversees Jennifer McTaggart and Sarah Pre. They do all the juvenile Justice, Council that you see around. Anyways, they have a 5-year grant, they get $125,000 per year. They're in their 4th year, this will be their 4th year. So the only thing that has changed on their end is their salary. I believe it's a little over 4% that they went up, which is the average of cost of living right now. She decreased their office expense line, but increased their mileage and travel. And then their service contracts, I'm not sure what they have under service contracts, but if I had to guess, it's mostly their advertising. They do a lot of advertising with the radio, or with the radio station, with the schools, they make the little posters that go on the bathroom doors at the schools, and the owl that you saw running around the fair, that's juvenile justice. And then they transfer over their portion from retirement, FICA, workman's comp, unemployment into the corresponding funds after I send them their monthly transfer sheets, so. And then she puts her remaining amount of $14,640 into miscellaneous, just for expenses that they may incur if they can do anything for the kids in the community, so. But again, this is 100% grant funded, so. That's all I got.
There's no questions. 89, you said she can't come today.
No,
You're doing it.
Jennifer Ingram, I did Jennifer McTaggart, I just did JJC.
Jennifer Ingram is coming.
I'm assuming. I thought she was.
Wanna go get her? I'd say that would be good.
Yeah, she might have an appointment, so.
Okay, while we're waiting on that, I have for total adjustments that we talked about for the general fund. We had a increase in expense of $5,000 for zoning travel. Offset by $4,000 in zoning fees. What's a positive?
So with all the adjustments that we've been, zoning, we went up 4,000.
Right. So that's,
But with all the adjustments that have been discussed and made with the revenues versus the expenditures, we're still sitting at a positive $363,890.
Question, does that include the potential back pay owed for the 4% for the radio? That we just talked with the radio
Telecommunicators?
stuff. Yes.
That's a different fund, that's not the general fund.
Oh, okay.
And I'm gonna tell you from experience, any back pay owed to telecommunicators, we've had a discussion on 9 times out of 10, it's probably gonna have to come out of public safety tax.
That also comes out of this year, not next
Is it okay if I sit here?
year.
Right.
Or increase of wages.
No rep
would be-
required.
The increase in wages, yeah,
I have a different fund.
yeah, that's different fund, and yeah, and that's still the salary differences, if those get increased or whatever, the makeup of the salaries for the telecommunicators is always gonna transfer out of the public safety fund in the past few years anyways.
I think we planned on some discussion around that as far as once we once we get a signed contract together, then there was gonna be additional discussion because we knew we were gonna have to reopen that particular line item in the budget.
So in the black, over the black.
I showed 345, is that what you said?
Positive 363,898. I have made changes to the 45,000 revenue for the building and zoning fees, 75,000 for the recorder fees, because that was 150.
Yep.
And then the other changes I have are
Assessment salary increase.
hang on, zoning, mileage, 15,000. Assessment, salary to 60,000. And postage increase to 65,000.
Assessment software, 5,000 or something.
We didn't change, I don't have anything down for changing that yet, cause I don't have, I gotta get the amounts from Doug. And I already sent him an email just to remind him and myself.
I didn't.
I did it. How dare you? If I don't do things as I'm thinking of, then I forget.
Same here. If I don't do it right now, you might as
And
well
I'll
forget it.
put all the changes on the list for you guys.
All right, Jennifer, sorry.
No worries. I was kinda
We
hanging
asked you to
out.
come early, so then now we're not.
No, I was kinda hanging out anyway, cause I think my board president's going to show, but I can go ahead and just, explain what's going on here with my budget.
Bring us up to date.
So, I'm asking for 100,000 this year, increase from what we had last year, which I believe is, about 67,000. And that's to cover the cost of the, loan that was given to the VAC, of 26,000, small increase for my wages. Pretty much everything else is staying the same, as far as that is concerned. Next year, we look at hiring someone and possibly keeping that, 100,000 for the budget or a tad bit more, depending on, what happens next year. Our goal is to pay that $26,000 back as soon as property taxes start to flow in here and get those things taken care of. We're going to probably start posting hiring here within the next budget cycle. We need an admin person and we need to pay them a living wage. So that's what we're looking at projectedly for next, or a year down the road from now. Again, 100,000 is what we're asking for. Like I said, a small increase in my salary. And the huge one there is the repayment back of the loan from the general fund. Just so you guys are aware, I was just going through my claims now. Our yearly award amounts are at $1.2 million coming into the county off of just myself doing claims. Our retroactive pay is a little bit down from last year at $553,000, but if you combine those two amounts together, we're at just a tick under 2 million, like at $1.8 million in awards that are coming in from veterans that we are serving within our county. And those dollars are being turned over and being spent in our county as well. I have a pretty good success rate, and I just ask that you guys consider my budget at 100,000 acceptable. Was there any questions?
Pretty straightforward to me.
I'm cut and dry, I'm straight to the point. There was a new Military Veterans Assistance Act that was enacted through the state of Illinois that allows us, I believe it's 3% of the county's budget to ask for it and it be granted. I think we're well under that, so. So, any questions? It's pretty cut and dry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I love my job. I still come to work and I say I can love my job, although.
Gets a little, takes 3 days off.
What's that?
Gets a little rocky once in a while though.
Every once in a while, we have to escort people out in bracelets. Yeah, last year it happened.
Too bad.
Too bad for them because they can't come back. And I don't wanna deal with them anymore, so. Alrighty,
Thank
guys,
you.
have a wonderful
Thanks
day.
again.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
So I have, out of revenue side, building and zoning fees. We're moving those to 4,500, so it's 4,000. The county recorder fees, we're decreasing those by 75.
Yep.
County highway transfer, the 10,000. Yep, that's it for revenues. And then out of zoning, mileage and travel, we increase that to 15, so plus 5.
Yep.
And then out of assessment, department head salary, we increase that to 60, so plus 5.
Yep.
And then postage, we increase to 65, which is plus 5.
Yep.
Is that what you got?
The only other thing was the software maintenance.
Right, which, yeah. We'll have to,
Whenever you get them.
we'll get that.
Which I penciled in 5. So if that is 5, that's an increase, a net increase, a net decrease of the general fund budget of 81,000 from what's shown on page 1. So that would put us at 343,000 if that were to come true. The one thing I would say we need to, you guys have your whatever with me this afternoon. Maybe if we can adjust some labor numbers or whatever to get a better feel for where those are actually gonna end up, because I don't know what the average increase was on page whatever you had there, but it's, I don't think, quite in line with what the 7 to 8 that you were expecting, so that's gonna increase that line item or the expense item there quite a bit.
So generally after these, yeah, he's gonna bring them with him tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been talking to Tom, we've been talking back and forth
So
for 2
that'll
weeks now,
change
so.
that.
Oh, yeah.
Generally, after these 2 days, for those of you that are new, I'll update the page 1, which is what your general fund is looking at. Your page 3, I'll put in all of our changes thus far. And then page 5, again, is a new one that I did, but I will also give you a breakdown of everybody and what they're gonna look at our projection increase for any contract that, you know, like right now, up in the air with ASME, and then that, all those other employees listed on there follow that contract. I'll give you those breakdowns after these 2 days. Well, I already told Tom that he can't go much above, you know, 424, I was teasing him.
Another 40.
They get, cause they get reimbursed 66 and 2 thirds, I think. Well, 100% for the probation salaries, and then, yeah, anyways, it breaks down to,
About that 40, 50,000,
yeah,
so.
Yeah.
The impact of probation, so
So we don't have the.
I'm showing
probation
if
grant.
the maintenance is.
no, I don't have their salary reimbursement
The
number.
maintenance on the assessment software is $5,000, we're at
So,
343.
and that's
So
usually
that
about.
Probation
4,
stuff's
yeah,
not in there,
450
which will be a impact of another 40,
So
50,
why-
so we'll be right at
that's
300 before the salary adjustments, which are gonna
Salaries will be
increase more than likely. So
different.
we'll be at 300-ish before, plus 300 before the salary things, which I will say, I don't know if Jennifer or Jill, if
I can
Jill's
call her a
cracking
lot,
the whip
that's my
here,
mom's
but that's,
name.
this is unheard of here. This is unprecedented that on this date we're in this position. Not that there's not a long way to go, but
Well, you know, I do have to say, I give it to the department heads, cause they have, several of them have been coming in and we've been going through, you know, previous years and looking at some of the things they want. I spent time with particularly Chris today, and Jennifer Ingram has come to see me, even though I don't have anything to do with her budget. You know, I've talked to Julie, Kurt, so they have been really good about coming in and going over their budgets and things like that, so I don't
no real crazy requests at this time.
know.
One comment I would like to make, and we'll have more information tomorrow, because we'll know what perhaps some of the developments are this afternoon. We have a situation where let's just hypothetically say that the AFSCME people want a 7% raise. We have department heads that are saying they can't hire people at that rate, they want a bigger raise. So we're gonna have to contemplate how, we're not gonna be making any counter offer to the union this afternoon.
Sure.
But we are gonna have to make one at some point in time. And it would be unprecedented, in my opinion, if they said they wanted a 7% raise and we said, well, we'll give you 15. Or whatever, I mean, that's what it, we're gonna be able to do what the department heads want to raise these wages up, that's kind of what it would boil down to, so.
Well, I think it would be good.
In fact, if we're looking at a surplus, the department heads are looking at that as well, they're gonna come up and say, hey, guys.
I think last year, it was later, August or September or whenever, we had one of those meetings and I was writing on the chalkboard that you had come up with that, what it looked like with a, I think at the time we were 3, 4, 5, whatever % raises
Yeah.
for. We're gonna need to have that exercise done again, I guess.
When we did the last AFSCME contract, we projected that for this year and next year, we would have to give them a 7% increase just to get to the minimum wage. but we're talking about an entirely different situation now insofar as what difficulty that we're having hiring people and or retaining people. And this is getting to be almost an epidemic with people that are leaving there. Every office has got vacancies. And they're not able to hire replacements.
Fortunate enough that, you know, Amanda Lacey, I saw Amanda Lacey, but you can really see it just in the treasurer's office. I mean, I was in there most of the day yesterday, and when I was, and Lacey was, Amanda held down the fort in our office, but it's just, yeah, it's, they really can't go any lower than their chief deputy and their deputy in that office. I can only speak for that office, but it's the only office I've had to help. But, yeah. Yeah, so in order to have it at $14, we're looking at like $7.5 to get it to 14 or 15.
Get us to 15 anyway.
But if we decide, and that's the thing is, I need a little input too. Is that what you wanna do? Do you wanna increase the starting wages? And I mean, we'll know more after today, obviously, but we say, hey, we're gonna increase our starting wages, which means we're only giving you to match the FOP, the 3.25% and 3% for the next 3 years, or the next 2 years, so, I don't know where it's gonna go, but if you wanna increase those starting wages, that's something that, you know, the board needs to make that decision.
That's what I'm saying, is we need the numbers to know what does that even mean, so, okay, 7%, 10%, that all sounds wonderful, I have no idea how much that costs.
Do you think those entry-level jobs compared to each department should be equally paid then? I mean, if you're a stocker at a grocery store versus if you're a cashier at the grocery store, could have different pay rates based on the skills and that needed.
Some of it depends on the union job classifications.
For example, highway employees, they are at a higher wage scale than just a normal deputy clerk is.
Qualifications, right? But I didn't know about in this building if you thought there was a difference in entry level.
Not for the positions, they're all deputy clerk positions. It's just a matter of they're learning elections or recording duties, they're learning assessment duties, and these guys over here are learning how to input tax distributions. It's just a difference, but they're all the same quality of work.
Skills needed.
The important thing to remember too, though, is it's not only increasing the starting level, because if you've got somebody who's been here for 10 years and they're making $15 and now starting with 15, the guy who's making, it's gotta go up.
They're doing the same thing in the hospital, no?
One other thing, I'll go say something to Eric, but we need to communicate with him and I'll send him your way, that we're gonna work on for the health department,
Yes.
Right.
audit fees, if there's any
And
other
requesting
fees,
a larger transfer.
we need to get that straight.
Did you get the in,
My opinion on that is that all of that arrangement with the health department should be reduced in black and white.
Oh, I agree.
No misunderstanding as to what we do and what they do.
Ultimately, like with an audit, I couldn't finish it for 2 months because I wasn't getting what I needed from that. So that looks bad on the county's part or my part, but I can't match imaginary numbers to a general ledger that I don't know what was reimbursed.
There's things in the state statute that provide for the county assisting them, for example, with the treasurer and so forth in their operation. But I still think it needs to be reduced to black and white as to what our understanding is in this county.
I agree. I hope that we can get some numbers around that. I mean, hopefully you could reach out to Hope and they can break down
Yeah.
what is it costing incrementally. And that should be pretty darn black and white, and we just do that going forward, and look, this is your cost of it. And that should be very black and white, and I think the part that may take a little thinking is, how much time do you guys spend, I don't know, a year, a month, whatever, dealing with that stuff too, because they don't have,
track it for a couple of months, see
I
what
don't know how to do it, but we need to figure that out, because
No, it's, I just.
Oh, okay. I had some concern with my
Didn't think we needed to
zoning
stay
software
on
that's being proposed to use an Excel spreadsheet, because that isn't a
Yeah, right now it's still
lockable
on.
document, and once a mistake happens, yeah. And after working with Word documents, working on ordinances, I see mistakes. So I'll check with other counties to see what they're using. I don't know if there's a QuickBooks or what, because we need inspections, check-off sheets for just, it's a lot. Seems to be more complicated than an Excel spreadsheet. But, so, I'll try to get us some quick answers tonight.
I think other than that, we'll have a motion to adjourn.
So,
Second, all in favor?
Aye.